Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to our live chat today. We have here Kristopher Triana and Kenzie Jennings, and I am your host today, Mother Horror. Just wanted to give a shout out to the Nightworms YouTube channel, which is I'm the co-owner of, and pulled some strings so that we could have our live chat on the YouTube for Nightworms. Also, we are sponsored by Jared at Death's Head Press and Patrick. I don't know if Patrick's here, but I see Jared's here, so shout out to Jared. Also, I just wanted to do some little housekeeping here. We have a chat over on the side that you guys can just shoot the shit. You can start putting some questions in there if you want to, and then I can highlight those at any time. Like I see, I can just say, hey, look at this guy.
Hey, Scott.
Scott says, love Kenzie Jennings. We love that. Or we can get some Papa love from Jared.
Yo, peeps. What's up, Jared? How you doing?
And Jeff Strand is here, who, let me just say really quick, I did this live panel. Well, it was kind of live. Yeah, it was live. And it was nonfiction writers, and we were just talking about horror and nonfiction. And Jeff Strand read from his new book about writing, and it was hysterical. Like I was really thankful that our cameras were hidden and we were muted, because I was just sitting kind of backstage or whatever, like laughing my ass off. It's so funny, and the way he read it was so funny. So.
Jeff is very funny.
Yeah,
it's a very unique sense of humor to him.
Yeah, hysterical. I loved it. Little shout out there. So yeah, just introducing my guests today. Go ahead. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourselves? You know more about you than I know about you. I just read your work.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kenzie, why don't you go ahead?
Hold on, my camera just went dead.
Oh, okay. Then I'll go then.
Okay. Yeah, we went over the technical problems that may come up. I'm Kenzie. I wrote Red Station and Reception, both of them published by Death's Head Press. I'm an English professor who teaches and lives in Central Florida. The closest, everybody asks, where in Central Florida are you located? I am right between Tampa and Orlando. So I am one end, there's I can go to the Mouse. The other end, I can go to Tampa Beach, St. Pete Beach. My hometown, Fairhaven, and we're primarily for alligators, orange groves, and Legoland. So that's pretty much the extent of it. I haven't been writing horror very long. I'm fairly new. I've been maybe the past 2.5 years or so. My first book, Reception, came out in 2019. And I was asked to write a SplatterWestern, so I joined the group to do that. And so Red Station came out last year in November. As far as future work, I have some things in the works, but they're bits and pieces. I've got some short stories. I've got a psychosexual thriller that's set in Central Florida. It's kind of suburban pulp that I'm working on right now called Night Girl. Writing about relationships, especially the darker aspects of them. So Red Station was a diversion for me, but I had a great time writing that. But that's basically me in a nutshell. There you go.
That was good. I've never heard of the subgenre psychosexual, though, actually.
I haven't either. I saw somebody had indicated it, and I said, that sounds about right.
I'm into it, whatever it is.
Yep, sounds good to me. I'm Kristopher Triana, and I'm a psychosexual. I'm the author of 12 books, mostly horror. I wrote Gone to See the Riverman. My most recent is The 13th Coyote, which is also a splatter western. It's a horror western about werewolves. And I thank you so much, Sadie, for having me and Kenzie on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually love doing live chats with authors because I feel like the reading experience is such like an intimate process between like reader and author that I feel like I somewhat know you guys just through the written word a little bit.
Sure.
And then I just think all these thoughts and feelings like during the reading process, and then I review it, but it's kind of like you can't share everything because it's really for other readers and you don't want to destroy like reading discovery. But I feel like there's so much I would want to like tell you guys about the process of just reading your work and getting to know you that way, but also just like your people back there, your people behind those words. And I just think it's really important for your audience and for your readers to just see your personality. I mean, Twitter's just a thing, Twitter is Twitter. It's not who we are. And so I think these live chats are really important just for people to see you, and ask questions. I actually did see a question up here that I thought was kind of funny. This one.
I'm going to say Kenzie.
Oh, I don't know. I think you might have a werewolf crew behind you, so I can't really say. But
I might.
Well, how tall are you?
We're not going to fight. That's not fair. That's a bad question.
How tall are you, Kristopher?
Just under 6 foot.
Yeah, so
5'3". So
I was gonna say, Kenzie, you can just go for like the bigger they are, the harder they fall is kind of like the rule of thumb there.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But let's talk about book 7 and book 8 by leading in with the other books. So book 1, if you're new to the SplatterWestern series that is published by Death's Head Press, I highly recommend, first of all, that you follow Death's Head Press on Twitter, because there has been a lot of tweets about new authors that are going to be taking on this challenge of writing a splatter western from a variety of diverse voices, and I'm really, really excited about it. So follow Death's Head Press on Twitter to stay in the know of who is coming on board for 2022. But first of all, starting off the whole thing is Wiley E. Young's Magpie Coffin. This kicked it off fantastically.
Yeah, it's a really good book.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It did come out in 2020, early 2020.
Yes, it
I think so.
March?
Yeah.
March?
Yeah. So
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It is. It can be a nomination for the Splatterpunk Awards.
Yes.
All of these books can. Pretty sure. So that one, which was amazing. And Hunger on the Chisholm. Wait, so how do you say that?
Chisholm.
Yeah, that.
No.
So this one was also really great. And if you can't see the covers, Justin T. Coons does an amazing job with all the covers. Yeah, they should be T-shirts, coffee mugs, posters.
I have a print that he sent me. It's in a frame up on my wall in my living room.
Of mine,
Coyote.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that one is kind of epic in my opinion. But I also really like the one for Chris Miller's Dust.
Yeah,
I love all the green and the tentacles and so this was book 3. And then book 4 we had The Night Silver River Run Red, which this one right now I Jared was actually telling me that this one has an audio book that just came out, and you can go to the Death's Head Press Twitter and maybe win a code to get a free audiobook. They might be all gone. I don't know. I just tweeted that not that long ago. And then we have Derek Miller's Starving Zoe. So there's that. And that one has pretty nasty cover there. And then A Savage Breed by Patrick C. Harrison III, who is also a co-owner of Death's Head Press. That's a pretty awesome cover. I mean, they're all amazing.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, and then I don't have physical copies of Red Station or the 13th Coyote, but I should have them on Monday.
No problem.
But I did just recently read them, and Kenzie's Red Station is book 7, and Triana's is book 8. Kenzie, did you want to talk about Red Station a little bit?
Sure. Well, the basic of it is our stagecoach pass who are on being transported to their various destinations in Kansas, and they stop at a home station for the night. And the home station happens to be run by a very suspect group of people. I don't want to give away too much, but I wanted to write it as to explain to people as a Western for horror fans rather than a horror for Western fans, because I'm not a fan of Westerns, and I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know, should I approach it like, the OK Corral kind of gunfight in the square, or saloon brawls. I didn't want to. So I decided, doing a little bit of research on the backstory of the inspiration, that is what it is, the people who run the home station. I came across a little a story, a true crime story involving a family who ran a home station, and I used that as the basis of it. So it became a slasher. And I thought, why not put all of the tropes that people are familiar with a slasher in a Western setting, including perhaps a final girl. And my final girl I'm so proud of her. So I love this, and I created this whole world where she comes from, and she is one of the stagecoach passengers, obviously, and she is on her way to marry a man who is he is sort of my Colonel Kurtz. He's insane, and a relic of the Civil War, and he has run this town into the ground, and she's coming out there to marry him for a reason too. This is kind of an arranged marriage, kind of not. I have something in the works that kind of gives a little more about that, but not too much. I don't like giving things away like that. I firmly believe in showing and not telling. So, but anyway, I had a great time writing it. And it's gotten good reception for it too. So, and all of the women who've read it have loved my final girl. So that's really all I care about right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just have to say that story kicked so much ass. Like, Clyde is probably my new favorite protagonist. Like, I just kind of get in this thing where I'm constantly like recommending female protagonists, and I'll just be a broken record about it. And that's one where I've been telling people like, oh, if you love female protagonists, it's this. I mean, she just like, it's such like a kind of like a slow burn too, where it creeps up on you, the drama and the what somebody was just in my inbox this morning telling me, oh, I just got to the crazy part, and I knew exactly where she was. So
I have a confession to make about that too. Because we were on a time crunch for them, I wanted to structurally follow the same sort of structure I had for reception. It just obviously it went in a different direction, but it was very slow in building up too. And it's because I like that kind of getting to know the characters. I like the exposition of that without telling too much. So the pacing was deliberately that way. So
yeah, it's awesome. Kristopher, before we get to the questions, because they're coming in now. So Kristopher, let's talk about the 13th Coyote. Let's talk about first how chunky that book is.
Yeah, it's got some girth to it. Yeah. It's about just under 500 pages. So yeah, it is an epic Western. People have called it Lonesome Dove meets The Howling, which is pretty accurate.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It's about werewolves in the Wild West, and it's about more than just werewolves. There's all sorts of black magic and sorcery involved in it, both good and bad magic and witchcraft. And there's this group of outlaws called the Coyotes, and they are each searching for their old leader, Jasper, who's actually dead, but they're searching for his heart because it holds this power that can lead them to an even greater evil power. And then there's also the small posse that is formed of people, all various people, who are put together to fight them, and it becomes this big battle. But yeah, there's a lot of characters in it. There's a rich cast of characters. There's a rugged U.S. Marshal, but there's also like a teenage girl, an emancipated slave. There's different people from different Native American tribes. So it's a very broad cast. And I actually do love Westerns very much. And I was writing Westerns years ago. I have Western stories that are in some anthologies and my short story collection, Growing Dark, has some Westerns in it. So I was actually working on this novel before the whole splatter Western thing with Death's Head happened. And then Connor's book came out, and I was learning about the whole splatter Western thing going on, and he passed on word to Jared that I was working on one, and then it all just kind of fell into place perfectly. But yeah, a lot of the other writers were mad at me because my book is like 3 times as big as theirs. And I was like, it's not about the length of the book. It's about the the quality of the books. I've read not all, but I've read several of the splatter Westerns, and I think they've been great.
You could not tell that story in a novella size, dude.
No, it's too big. There's too many characters. There's too much going on. Yeah, but yeah. I don't think it drags. I think I think it
no.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. In fact, I was not prepared. I mean, and I just have to say, like, all of you guys who are hanging out in the chat right now, like, you are just not prepared. If you haven't read it, that book in particular, you go in thinking, okay, like, yeah, this is going to be some werewolves running around, like, attacking people. It is like complex. Like, this shit is complex. Like, this is an intricately plotted story that is in the multiverse. Like, I mean, it's just like good versus evil on like an epic level. It's like heaven and hell, and bringing in like demons and just like old ancient shit going on. Like, I mean, there's
on top of like all the research that I did about life in the 1800s and everything, I did a lot of research into Greek mythology and Inuit mythology and Native American, mythology. And there's a lot of that all just mixed together. It's almost like every culture in history had it a little bit right, but not exactly. And so there's like parts of all of it mixed together. Like, you mentioned heaven and hell. Hell in this is actually kind of just like a parallel dimension, so yeah, it's a big book. It's a big book,
but it's worth it. I mean, it's like when you read The Dark Tower and you hit, you hit your stride in the middle, and you're like, hey, there's gotta be, like, it's so backloaded at the beginning of the series, there's just going to be a lot coming at the end, and you're just geared up and waiting for it, like the showdown, the build up to the showdown is like, mind blowing. So I definitely want to get to some of these questions here before we get buried.
Okay.
Shane Hawk, really quick, wanted to say he just buzzed in and said hi.
Hi,
so
Shane.
I just want to say hi to Shane.
Thanks, dude.
Backpedal here really quick. Oh, I loved this one. I always want to know what horror books make you cry like a baby. Actually, weirdly enough, both of these ones made me tear up a little bit, but
nice.
I mean, you don't think horror is going to come and, you're going to like cry, but I mean, you get invested in these people and then they get their heads torn off. It sucks.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I think there's definitely an emotional aspect to horror. I mean, if you don't care about the characters, then it's not scary when they're being chased or bad things are happening. No, I think horror books can definitely move you emotionally, and I definitely strive for that. I don't want the characters to just be one-dimensional body bags just waiting to get knocked off. I want them to have some complexity and have personality, be it good or bad.
Well, that's the thing. You have to create human beings. You have to you empathize with.
Right.
You have an emotional investment in. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you want more from it too. I mean, definitely from in both of these books, I was like, okay, I think they kind of left it open for something else, either a prequel or a sequel. I would be down for either. Here's another from Joshua Marcella. He said, did you both come up with your pitches prior to open submission, or did you already have stories in the works? So Christopher kind of answered that a little bit, but
yeah, no, I didn't come up. I was approached to write a splatter Western, and that was all I was given. So everything else was up to me entirely. Yeah, no. So I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. I had no idea where I was going to begin.
Wow, I love that. That was some homework you did.
Yes, it was.
my God.
Thank goodness I'm in academia, because the research, wow.
Yeah. When you're writing a Western, the research is crucial. Sometimes I think a lot of people will think that because they watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, they can write a Western. And it's like, no, like I've read bad Westerns before and have abandoned them because I'm like, Dynamite didn't exist yet. What are you talking about? You know, and stuff like that. Like things pop up.
Yeah.
You know, or they have like totally misconceptions about the Civil War and what happened and when it ended and how, and like stuff like that aggravates me. If you're going to immerse yourself in the world, you have to learn that world.
Yes.
I go back and I look at every little thing. I'm like, okay, this particular weapon, this particular tool, any little thing. Yep. When did the fork first start being used? Not just when was it invented, when was it used commonly in American culture?
Not just that, but also I was so like you. I was meticulous, and I was so interested in the dialogue. I hate dialogue where there are a lot of anachronisms in it. You're writing a Western and you've got 21st century slang going on. Everything
that gets me too.
Everything has to be precise. I totally agree with you.
It's like in it's like the show Deadwood. I can't get into it because they're constantly saying MF this and and all that. I don't know if I can curse on this. So I've some cussing. Okay, well they say stuff like motherfucker, and that wasn't common at the time. You know, like people didn't really say that. Like they used the F word in relation to sex itself, but not so much as an insult. And like stuff like that bugs me. I'm like you were saying, it's like people didn't talk like that. You know. So
yeah, I picked up on a lot of like interesting language in your book, Chris. There was just like a lot of like mayhaps and what was the one Callie brought up the other day? We were in our group chat. It was like son of an onion, or was that your book? I don't know.
It might have been. Yeah, I put that in there, but and a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that stuff, like people saying yorn and arn and stuff like that. That's all vernacular of that time. And a lot of that stuff I gathered from reading so many Westerns throughout my life, reading, Elmer Kelton and Elmore Leonard and Cormac McCarthy, and even reading books that people might not think, like reading Toni Morrison and stuff like that, where it's not a Western, but it takes place in the 19th century, and you're getting the dialects of different people, different races, and people that have come from different parts of the world and immigrated from different parts of Europe, and how they spoke. And that's why not every character speaks in that same way in the book. Certain people do and certain people don't. So
all of it helps with the authenticity.
It also the emphasis on social structures too, social class structures.
Right. Absolutely.
And language use. I didn't get mine. I did not read as many Westerns as I probably should have in prep for this. But I got in the loop of reading old documentation. One of the things that I bought was a collection of personal ads through the Matrimonial Times, because Clyde's background has to do with that. And so I read a lot of letters between people courting each other, essentially.
Right.
And so the language came from that. It's just a matter of getting it, and then the social structures showed in the vernacular in those letters. That's absolutely essential.
Absolutely.
And all of it too, like, just goes to prove that it's genuine, it's authentic. It goes miles with the readers, I think. I mean, because a lot of people think they can just slap some stuff together and call it a day. But I mean, there's really smart readers in the world who don't like the bullshit and will call it out. So
absolutely. And you can learn stuff from in my book. Like, a lot of people don't realize that some Indians, Native Americans, they're called Indians in the book, obviously, actually owned slaves at one point, and things like that. Like, that stuff, I'm not just making that up. That stuff is actually drawn from real life. I read a great book about the posseman Bass Reeves, who was a lawman in the Wild West who was an emancipated slave, and like his backstory was a lot of what drew me to write the character of Oscar Shies in the book. So like, you can actually learn stuff from reading these books. Like, the Western stuff that I put in there is actually true.
Yeah, that's actually a really good segue to this next question, because it says, what is your approach to the use of gore in your narratives, and how do you find the right balance? And I thought that, Kristopher, that was really important what you said, because your werewolves and your villains, they all had backstories. And I felt like I am way more tolerant of stretching myself with the gore and the violence and the graphic nature if I have something that I'm hanging on to and it feels like a real person, instead of just this like cardboard cutout of somebody who's running around doing all this gross, shitty stuff. Like, I just don't have patience for that. Like, that kind of gore and violence does not carry over well with me. Like, I'll just tap out.
Yeah, it has to be part of the narrative. It can't be gratuitous. I don't respect extreme authors who can't understand that when he was saying the approach of gore in an extreme novel, and not using it as a crutch rather than using it as something part to the story, the character's motivation. So
but sometimes it's just brutality for the sake of brutality, and they're just going for shock value, and that can be very detrimental. It can take away from whatever story they're trying to create. And like Sadie said, if you don't have realistic villains, they're not going to be interesting, and they're not going to be half as scary either, because you're not going to really know what their motivation is, other than them being like this soulless Jason Voorhees, just killing machine, with no personality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't mind putting gore in.
No, let me just say too, for people who are on the fence about reading these splatter westerns, or are going to try one for the first time, or have read them all and are getting ready to read Red Station or the 13th Coyote, Triana is not fucking around. Like, there were times where I was like, I had to put the book aside for them to be like, whoa, like, this is intense. Like, the main guy, Glenn, like, his backstory is dark. Like, that is dark.
It is.
It is pitch black. And then,
but it's not just blood and guts. It's just the nature of the story. Like, what happens is so dark, like you were saying, but it's not just like him just swimming in guts dark. It's like this dark story arc.
Right. Yeah. No, and even Ashley and I today, we were packing our Nightworms orders for our goodie bags and stuff for February, and we were kind of like going back and forth about one of the parts in the 13th Coyote, where she was saying like, well, it's kind of gross that there's this like one part where they have to like, protect this talisman with like the blood of babies, and I was like, yeah. But like, it's not like just the blood of, like, they're bloodletting. Like, it's not like they're murdering babies and then, so like we were going back and these nuns are trying to protect this talisman, and the only way they can do it is to purify it with holy blood. And so they use the blood of orphans in a bloodletting, not killing them, right?
But
they're not
draining their blood.
The babies. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we were. I had to make sure she knew that it was like the blood. It was like bloodletting of babies. Like, there's a difference.
It's still dark as hell, but
I mean, we're splitting hairs about nastiness here, but So Mindy wants to know, Kenzie, what made you name your protagonist Clyde? because it was the first time she saw that for a female. I love that name too.
Yeah. In my research, especially when I was reading these letters, I kept coming across that. I kept coming across there were women who were named Clyde, and I thought that was unusual, and did a little research into the backstory of the name, and not unheard of. But to give you a little future reference here, I am writing a piece right now that kind of explains how she got that name. So, because she's an orphan. So she has an interesting story with that. I also like it too. I'm kind of biased as well. I said, I'm going to give it to her because I like it. I like the thought of a woman being named this, but also my grandfather's name was Clyde as well. So it was kind of significant to me.
Oh, I do love that. Actually, if you guys want to learn more about Clyde and all the badassness that she encompasses, you wrote a cool little piece that we showcased on Nightworms today. So you could go to the Nightworms blog and read that. It was a really cute piece about how Kenzie doesn't think that she would survive her own book, actually.
No. Slaughtered, dead.
Either. I mean, I'm one of those people who like kind of watches horror movies like that, and then I'm always like, how do people get themselves in these situations? I would not even be in the ocean, A, and B, like, why would I be looking for sharks? You know,
I would be out west in the west.
No.
Yeah, there weren't nearly as many women out there, and there's good reason for it. It was not a friendly place.
Yeah, and they had to be like strong. I mean, a lot of times, like, you know, if you had a farm to take care of and your, partner had to go into town for whatever, like, you're watching over the farm and here's the shotgun, and if anybody, comes around, you're the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chad Lutzky's here.
Hey, Chad.
What's up?
And he says, my favorite is the fingernail armored antagonist from John Bowden's Walk the Darkness Down. We definitely do need to plug John Bowden's book, Walk the Darkness Down, because it's a weird Western.
Yep.
And you want to hear something kind of interesting that I like picked up on? Okay, so Kristopher Triana's book has kind of like a portal. I don't want to say too much, but there is a portal. And John Bowden's book, Walk the Darkness Down, also has a portal. And the Gunslingers, the Dark Tower by Stephen King, also has something called finnies that are sort of like portals in between worlds. Yeah. So I think it's kind of an interesting connection from Western to like a cosmic horror that humans like to play around with. I mean, it's just something that like it keeps cropping up in
it's true.
The crossover.
No, that is true. I don't know. Maybe I don't know why that is. Maybe it's like thinking of the past as an alternate world in a way, I don't know.
I mean, like Westworld. Did you guys watch Westworld?
I love Westworld, yeah.
Yeah, I did too. And it's kind of that same thing where it's just like, okay, like, is the past really like what we thought it was? Or, can we get back there? There's always some sort of like time travel thing with Westerns. I think is really interesting. Triana and Bowden now have to collab on the portals. So that's a good idea.
It could happen.
You said the word multiverse.
Yeah, here we go. Jared says Godless is an awesome show. Now, was Godless? Did you guys watch that? Was that the one on Netflix?
That's the one on Netflix. That was something.
It was like a mini series.
It was, and it's about women.
I loved that.
Yeah, it's on my list of many things to watch that I don't have time to watch.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend it. And the Buster Scruggs or Buster.
That's the Coen brothers.
Yeah, the Coen brothers.
Yeah, that was also like Western theme.
Yeah, that one was good. I enjoyed that.
Okay, so our friend Emily says she has a generic question, but we don't believe in generic questions here. I always have the boring generic question, but when writing, did y'all have a dream cast in mind or pictured a specific person while writing? I always think of that too. Like, do you cast your books?
Sometimes I can kind of picture certain people, But if I do, like, it's when I entertain the idea of it being a movie later in my own, like, bullshit fantasies. And then, like, sometimes I'm kind of casting after the fact,
Yeah.
Same. I don't, when I'm writing it, I don't have any idea. Just see faces, they don't belong to me. But for sure. If somebody says, I have friends who always ask that question all the time now. And it's kind of overwhelming because I think about 16 people who could play this person.
Yeah. If I had the power, I would just put Mickey Rourke and everything because he's the greatest actor. Like, I love him. I would just write characters for him over and over again.
I was going to say I put Tom Hardy in everything, and so he definitely would be the U.S. Marshal in your book.
Yeah, that would be good. He would be good awesome. as Marshall Russell. Yeah.
Tom Hardy's in everything in my mind.
I like him too.
Yeah, I mean, he's just really versatile, but he's like a big-bodied person that can take on like lots of different roles. So
he's good. Sometimes he talks like he's got a mouthful of shit, though. I can't understand what he's saying.
I know.
He mumbles, but I like him. He's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I haven't even thought about that. I just sort of, who is the actress? Lena Headey, I think that's her name.
Clyde. I know. Was she in Dragon Tattoo or?
No. She was in Game of Thrones. She played
yes.
Dredd. If you saw Dredd, she was the villain in it.
Was she Cersei or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess. But again, she's like one out of many people who've kind of fluttered around in my imagination.
Yeah. You tell us, Emily. It sounds like
that's
you
right.
have an
That's
idea.
Right.
Let me see. There was something else here that I thought was actually kind of cool. This one? Did you two have any major influences that helped you craft your books? Film, books, or music?
Yeah. Like some of the authors that I mentioned earlier, Cormac McCarthy, for example, I really got into, like, he has a very different brand of Western. Like, some people think Western, they just think like, giddy up and just tripping horses and like the John Wayne movies. They just think it's that. But like, there's much more to that time period than just that kind of fantasy of like the stranger comes into town and fights the evil and everyone's like, yay, it's not all the Lone Ranger. I mean, there's definitely a place for that, and that stuff is great. But you read something like Blood Meridian or All the Pretty Horses, and like those are incredible Westerns that don't follow the Western blueprint, for the storytelling. So I definitely drew inspiration from all of that stuff that I've read over a lifetime. And then when it comes to the weird Western aspect, I always liked Joe R. Lansdale and Jack Ketchum wrote some books like Dead in the West, The Crossings. So yeah, and I've always wanted to do a big epic Western horror, and now the fact that this has become a popular genre is very exciting to me because it means I get to write more of them.
Yeah. I didn't have in terms of Western, I didn't have much influence, but structurally, again, I kind of followed the same pattern than I used to do before, but I did. The slasher subgenre is something I don't like either. But it was, I love the idea of merging conventions, like the Western convention, the slasher conventions, and then turning it into something of my own. So I sat down for a weekend and watched all of the slashers that people recommended to me, and just one after the other. It wasn't many. It was maybe about 6 or 7. Okay, so obviously it didn't run the gamut of like the entire slasher collective. And I picked up on a lot of the quirkier aspects of some of the more famous ones, such as I threw in another interview. I told them Sleepaway Camp was a big influence, believe it or not. If you read Red Station, you'll kind of understand where I'm going with it in the end. Kind of. So those kinds of things were inspirational in the sense that I needed some sort of material to use as a slasher. But other than that, aside from my research, not really. I didn't have much. But yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting that these splatter westerns are like picking up steam and gathering like a fan base and people are collecting them. I mean, it has the potential to carry on for like years, and maybe we'll get some movies out of it, like Wiley E. Young is suggesting here. Because yeah, I mean, westerns are like some of my favorite movies are westerns. Like Young Guns is a movie I could watch like 1,000 times and never get tired of it, you know, or the True Grit, or, you know, either adaptation or 3:10 to Yuma, or you know, all those.
Yeah.
We like our westerns. Jared wants to know if I'm drinking tea or bourbon, and it's 2:40, so it's definitely tea. So, what does this say here, Miranda? Kenzie, I'm so curious as to what happens with Clyde and the Commodore.
Oh, I've got a story coming. I do. I can't say anything too much, but yeah, she's going to have an interesting time with him. Let's just put it that way.
Psychosexual.
The madman of Idle Creek. Yep, that'll be fun.
I want more for sure. Here's a question. Jared has all the questions for us. Louis Lamour or Zane Grey?
I'm going to let Chris answer that, because
I was going to say, go.
That's kind of hard. I mean, I guess Louis, just because you get so many more books. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like you know, choosing between any other writers that you love, like Stephen King and Clive Barker. It's like I can't choose between them. I love them both so much, you know. So,
and totally different too, like totally
very much
different voices and styles, and yeah, for sure. I hate when people want me to pick like a top 20, because different horror subgenres like have my favorites like within the subgenre, you know, like it's hard to just pick like a top 20 and then canvas like the whole gamut of horror. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like the Oscars, you know. I feel like there should be like a best of the comedy and a best of the horror and a best of best picture, because horror is always going to be slighted next to these, you know, epic movies that are so like kind of, you know, fussy.
All the Academy Award type stuff. It's always some big weepy, you know,
it's
drama. It is. It's very much is. It's just them just like patting themselves on the back. But yeah, like in so many of the movies that win, I'm like, give me a break. You know, like Forrest Gump beat Pulp Fiction. Are you kidding? It's ridiculous. You know, like Pulp Fiction is a way better movie. Like Titanic and The English Patient, these movies are boring as shit, you know. They win, you know. So
well, I mean, all awards are this way when you think about it. Like when the Goodreads is always like, okay, it's the Goodreads Fan Choice Awards. It's like, well, if Stephen King's in the category, everything else is gonna lose. Like that's
absolutely
just how it is.
Right.
And it's not like a real litmus test of quality in the genre.
Right.
And that, I mean, we have the Splatterpunk Awards, which is great because it's this niche award that actually both of your books qualify. But also like the Stokers, you know, like Kristopher has, you know, a couple books. You actually didn't Gone to See the Riverman make the
preliminary ballot.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, let me just plug that book here. My signed copy.
Yes, it made the preliminary ballot for this year's Superior Achievement in a Novel, which is, I'm really overwhelmed by that. It's fantastic. Hope to make the final ballot. I hope any active members of the HWA feel free to reach out to me on social media if you're interested in a ebook copy to review. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And also, let's just, before we wrap it up here pretty soon, let's just plug Kenzie's Reception. Now, this book you said came out in 2019, but it's just coming on my radar, you know, now. So I'm going to host a read along of this, and we're starting on Valentine's Day. And it's going to be a red reception.
Yeah, it's a Splatterpunk nominee too. So Yeah.
Oh, for this year?
Yeah, no, for last year.
For last year. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I was actually I didn't know that I had read so much Splatterpunk last year. And then when I saw the nominees, I was like, this is like what I read all the time. Well, I mean, what do you guys think the genre really, as it boils down? Like, how do people nominate something? Like, what's the criteria?
For the Splatterpunk Awards particularly?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's hard to say because to me, there's a difference between, and I mean, the Splatterpunk Awards take both of these into account, but I think there's a difference between Splatterpunk and extreme horror. A lot of people just consider them the same thing. To me, Splatterpunk is just like crazy and sometimes gory, just to like for humor's sake, like Edward Lee, who I love. His stuff could just be like just absolutely insane for laughs, whereas extreme horror to me is more like Jack Ketchum, something like that, like The Girl Next Door or something like that. Like my book Full Brutal, I consider extreme horror, whereas Toxic Love, I consider it more splatterpunk. So I think it kind of it depends. Sometimes there'll be books that are really great horror books in the indie scene, but they don't really fall into either of those categories. So people are not only are they not likely to recommend it for a Splatterpunk Award, but even the authors themselves are like, I don't really think my book really qualifies, and don't even push it either.
But from what I understand, the awards are also for extreme. It's not just Splatterpunk genre.
No, it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, I was saying other types of horror aren't really considered for it.
Right.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely extreme and Splatterpunk. I was just saying that to me, those are two different things to me.
They are. I also the idea of punk is rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
The punk ethos with it. It's kind of you know what? Screw you.
Right.
Yeah, right. And also, like, I think the awards are probably pretty easy for people to handle in terms of like, nominating novels or collections or whatever. But I think on the short story, you'll get like an extreme or splatter story tucked into an anthology, and those are a little harder to find unless you single one out of a collection, like, Wesley had Resisting Madness last year. And so you could like pull a story out from a collection like that and nominate it for the short story. But I mean, we need to remember that there's all these anthologies that come out all year, and you could just, pull one from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The story selection seems like the most difficult because of that very reason. I was talking to Janine Pipe about that, and finding out that she learned one of her stories is an extreme horror story, and she said, I said, I will help you put it. I will gladly. I love the story. I'll help you with that. So yeah.
And I mean, someone who doesn't really think that they, are reading in that genre would be surprised to learn that all the different things that are nominated. Yeah, I mean, you've been reading them all year long. Like Grindhouse is a great example. A lot of their books are, experimental and extreme and exploitive and all of the above. Mm-hmm. So
it's very transgressive horror, the stuff they put out. Yeah, I work with them a lot.
Yeah.
They're great to work with.
Oh, here's a question from Wiley. Kenzie, are you sure I can't talk you into Reception Volume 2? Say yes to the
That's an inside joke. There was a lady.
Oh my God. Can that please be a title?
Yeah. There's a lady at Scares That Care that apparently came to the table when I wasn't there to ask if there was a Volume 2. And the cover of Reception, it looks like a wedding magazine on purpose. So it says Volume 1. And so she thought.
Oh, yeah. Let's look at it.
I mean, it says at the top there.
Yeah.
I love how, like, unappetizing this looks.
But yeah, so that's a joke.
The Volume 1.
Volume 1, Volume 2. But, people love covers. So.
Yeah.
Eric wants us to know that he just picked up one of Christopher's books from Grindhouse. Was it this one?
Hell yeah, Eric.
Woohoo! I don't know. It could be there's a couple.
Thanks, Eric. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I read Full Brutal the first time I met Chris over at Killer Con. I got Full Brutal, and I read that whole thing on the plane, the 3-hour plane ride, even though it's a thick book, but I read it all just in one sitting.
Nice.
I mean, say what you will. I really honestly think that I've been reading straight horror since September of 2017. So, I mean, I haven't picked up any other genre, with the occasional, like, you know, I'll read Lansdale or something, The Thicket or one of those, but I mean, like, just straight horror, and it's honestly ruined me for other genres. Like, I just don't have patience for some book just like dicking around with, you know, like, just boring. Sorry, it's just boring.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one fun thing about extreme horror is it's like you're gonna be entertained.
Yes.
So we're gonna wrap it up. It is 2:50. And we did say we were going to go for a little bit, you know, under an hour, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys get in any plugs that you want to get in for anything coming up. I know, Christopher, you have a collab coming soon.
I do. Myself and another Splatterpunk award-winning author, Ryan Harding. He and I have written a novel together called The Night Stalkers. That's Stalkers with an O, and the O is a pentagram. And it's a extreme horror, black comedy in a lot of ways. It's about two rival grocery stores, and one of them is called Devil's Food, and they're all Satanists. They're all Satanists, and it's kind of a siege story. It's like Assault on Precinct 13 if it was grocery stores. It's an overnight, and like the one store attacks the other store, and all sorts of gore and hilarity ensues.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's more just Splatterpunk fun, just being crazy. But I have that, and then later in the spring, I have a crime novel coming out that borders on horror, and that'll be with Death's Head Press as well. We're working on some horror crime, and then not just the horror westerns, but horror crime.
I might be secretly reading that, but I'm not going to confirm.
Yeah, I've got there is an anthology coming out that is, the proceeds are going to Planned Parenthood. Slice Girls, specifically for Women in Horror Month. And it's about evil women from Lamour's press. And I've got a short in it. And that comes out February 9th. So this month.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
So,
nice.
And I got a couple of short stories coming out, a couple of anthologies. But that's later on down the line. In terms of books, like I said, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, the Death's Head Press SplatterWestern family keeps expanding. So that is a really exciting thing, I'm sure, for you guys, just knowing that, like, yeah, if there is a sequel to either of your books or a prequel, I always like throwing that out there because it's like, you know, I don't really want to say goodbye to favorite characters. And so if you guys ever want to, you know, like jump on that train, we'd be more than happy to do that. So
I won't give any details, but I am working on a sequel to the 13th Coyote. So
I am working on kind of a sequel and prequel in a way. So
yes. And then I also heard there might be a magpie something or other coming, the magpie coffin, maybe. Who knows?
A little birdie told me something about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like I work for the company or anything. I don't hear any news about Death's Head ever. So hey, we just want to thank everybody for showing up and asking all your awesome questions and hanging out with us. I just want to thank Kristopher Triana for coming and talking to us today, and Kenzie Jennings for joining us for a live chat, and then also Nightworms for hosting us, which is my business. So like I said, it's like no big deal. And then, hey, let's do another chat sometime, and we'll have more Death's Head Press stuff to promote, I'm sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you guys. It's good to see you both.
Bye. It was nice to see you too.
Bye.